This is standard 45, graphing systems of equations. Go ahead and pause the video here to title your notes. Okay, so we are going to start off by reviewing. So here's an equation of a line, and we just need to talk about the parts of it. So the number 4 in this equation represents the y-intercept, and 1 over 5 represents the slope. So when we are graphing, we're always going to start with the y-intercept, and this example would be 4. So we're going to go over to our graph. We're going to go to the y-axis and make our first point at positive 4. And then we're going to go over here, and here's our slope, positive 1 over 5. So we go to the y-intercept that we just plotted, and we go up 1 space. And then we are going to go to the right 5 spaces. Right? And then if we want to continue making points for our line, we would then just go back to our y-intercept and we would do the opposite. So instead of going up and to the right, we would go down and to the left. And you do not need to write this on your paper. This is your review of what we were learning last week when we were graphing lines. So then the very last part is to go ahead and connect it with a straight line, and that's what I did here. Okay. So now let's go ahead and get on to graphing systems. So graphing systems is very similar. Instead of having one line to graph, you will now have 2 lines to graph. And so before we see some examples of graphing 2 lines, we're going to talk about the 3 types of solutions. So the very first type of solution is one solution. You can go ahead and you can pause throughout this slide and just sketch. You don't have to make your drawing perfect. You could just draw 2 lines that are intersecting. And that means that it has one solution. So the lines cross at one point on the graph, and we write this solution as a point. So we always have our x value first and our y value second. So for this example, we would have a point at, our x value would be negative 1 on our x-axis, and then our y value would be positive 3. And so that is where they intersect. So down here at the bottom, we would just write that as negative 1, comma 3, and close our parentheses. So that is how you would write the solution for a system that had one solution. The next type is no solution. And this happens when we have parallel lines. So our lines do not intersect. As you can see, they are parallel. And this also means that they have the same slope. So when you're given the equation, the slope or the fraction in that equation will be the same. And the third and final type of solution, and we don't see this too often, but it is called infinite solutions. So this means that they are the same exact line, and the slope and y-intercepts are exactly the same in the equations. Okay, so this is example 1, and you can go ahead and you can pause at any point to write down the equation and then to just sketch a rough drawing of the graph. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I would not even try sketching the boxes. I would just put your x-axis and your y-axis on your paper and just number them. If you have graph paper at home, it would be probably really helpful to use for this. But then again, a rough sketch of this will also help with your understanding. So let's go ahead and start. So our first equation says y equals 2 over 3x plus 4. The 4 is our y-intercept, so we're going to go to our graph on the y-axis and make our first point at 4. And then we need to go ahead and make more points so that we create our line, and our slope is going to help us do that. So our slope is 2 over 3. So the top number is going to tell us how many spaces to go up or down. And then our bottom number is going to tell us how many spaces to go to the left or to the right. So let's go ahead and do that now. Back to your y-intercept. We're going to go up 2 spaces. And then we're going to go to the right 3 spaces because our slope is positive. So we're going to move in the positive direction. And then to make more points on our graph, we're going to go ahead and do the opposite now. So instead of going up 2 and to the right 3, we're going to go down 2 and to the left 3. And then we make our point. And so I would advise, since we're graphing 2 lines, to make as many points as you can on your graph. Because sometimes your lines might not intersect right away. So we're going to finish this one off with making a straight line through our points. Let me go ahead and grab my straight line here since I don't have a ruler to help me. And if you have your school ID also works as a great tool for a straight edge to make your straight lines. Okay. I don't know what my computer's doing. It's kind of freezing. Okay. So we have our first line graphed. Our second line, we're going to start here at positive 5. So our starting point is always our y-intercept. And we plot that point on our y-axis. So we're going to go on our y-axis at 5. Let me grab a different color so it makes it easier for you guys to see. And we're going to make our first point, and then we're going to use our slope to graph more points of our line. So our slope is positive 1 over 3. We go up 1 space and to the right 3 spaces. And there we go. So that's where we have our intersection. But we're going to go ahead and be precise to make more points for this line. We're going to go down 1 and to the left 3. And then once you have those 3 points, especially since we found the point at where the lines intersect, we can go ahead and connect our points to make our straight line. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead. So when we have our 2 lines that intersect at a point, that means that our solution is called one solution. So when we were to answer this question on a test, and my computer's kind of freezing right now, we would write one solution, and then we would also name the point at which they cross. So one solution, and then we would name the point. So our x value of where they meet is at positive 3, and the y value is positive 6. So we would write that 3, 6. Okay, we have one more example to do together before you try one on your own. So our second example, again, go ahead and feel free to pause as much as you need to stay on track with me. So our next example, our first equation is y equals 1 over 2x plus 4, or plus 2. And so we're going to start with our y-intercept of 2 by making that first point on our y-axis. Then we'll use our slope to plot more points. So we need to go up 1 space and then to the right 2 spaces. Up 1 space and to the right 2 spaces. Up 1 and to the right 2. And then to go ahead and continue the direction of our line to make sure that we have it all on here, we're going to go back to our y-intercept, and now we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to go down 1 and to the left 2. Down 1 and to the left 2. Okay, and we'll connect that with a straight line. Okay, and then our second equation that's given to us, we're going to start with the y-intercept of positive 6. So right there, there's our y-intercept. We're going to look at positive 6 and make our first point. And then we're also going to use the slope again of 1 over 2. So we have a little bit of room to go up. We can only go up one time. So we're going to go up one space and then to the right 2 and make a point. And then we need to go back to our y-intercept and we need to go and do the opposite so we can make more points of our line. So we're going to go down 1 into the left 2 this time. Down 1 into the left 2. Down 1 to the left 2. As many times as we can. Okay, and so now we'll go ahead and connect that with a straight line as well. And what you'll notice once you have both of these lines graphed is that they do not intersect. So when we were talking at the beginning about the types of solutions that we have when we're graphing systems, this is going to be our other type of solution. So this is no solution. And so that's just what we write as our answer. So they're no solution because our lines are parallel. And so we could have checked ourselves right from the get-go to make sure that our lines are going to show up parallel because our slopes are the same. Okay, so this is your U-try problem. So go ahead and sketch a graph and write down these two equations. Remember that you're always starting with the y-intercept. And on your first equation, you're going to make your first point, at -1. And on your second equation, you'll start at -2. So go ahead and try this one on your own. And then when you come to class on Monday, we will go over this problem on the board together. Have a good weekend.